All right. All right. There we go. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, how's it going?
So we got Andrew Crowell here. By the way, Crowell, right? Is that how you pronounce
Crowell,
it?
it sounds better with a British accent. I think that's the intent. Yeah, so Crowell.
Crowell.
Yeah,
Okay.
but no
Andrew
one just
Crowell.
gets it right, so it doesn't matter.
So Andrew is from KeySavvy. I'm not going to butcher what that is. I'll let him tell us. But I think, the reason I started these podcasts is just pure selfish reasons, is to talk to people that I want to talk to about topics that excite me. And so it has nothing to do with you, Andrew. This whole thing is all about me. So yeah, why don't you just tell everyone about KeySavvy, because I think that would be kind of a good place to start. But I know we got a bunch of other things we want to run through as well.
Yeah. I'll do the butchering for you on the intro to KeySavvy. Basically, we're a technology platform, and our mission is to take the worry out of private party vehicle transactions. It's a big transaction. People don't navigate them often, and it's really complicated at a 50-state level. So we've built payment technology and a user experience that makes those specific pieces really easy. So after a buyer and seller agree on a price, we take them to the finish line. They pay online, verify their identity, e-sign all the docs, and we're there to help and support in any way we can, during and after that transaction.
Cool. So you're talking about, those Craigslist type transactions, or just between me and my neighbor, or anything like that, right?
Yeah, I would say, like, you and your neighbor is probably that's one of the cases where I would say you probably don't need KeySavvy. It's when you find that car on Craigslist, and the seller says they'll only take cash, and you're like, maybe I don't want to show up to a Walmart parking lot with $20,000 in cash to buy this truck. That's the time where you might want to use KeySavvy, because you can pay online without taking out a ton of cash. We notify the seller that we've verified your payment, and then as soon as they hand you the keys, you click a button basically, and we transfer the funds to your seller.
I mean, there's obvious reasons on why there needs to be a secure platform for this, but what is it that what's fundamentally broken, and why is there a need for a KeySavvy? I mean, I think we all have our ideas of why, but what are some of those, I guess, bullet points that you're solving for?
It's a lack of trust. It's a large sum of money, and it's trust and inconvenience are the two main things that are broken. The trust factor is kind of what I described. If somebody hands you a cashier's check, not everyone knows that you should call the bank and verify that cashier's check, or because they're very easily forged. It's much easier to counterfeit a cashier's check than cash, but even cash is counterfeit sometimes too. We actually compile, early on in KeySavvy, we used to go on Reddit on like a weekly basis and just search for people posting that got screwed, and we would compile those, and we've got a blog page that just lists all people that got scammed out of thousands of dollars. And that's just on the payment side. The title side is the other one, where buyer pays the seller for the car, and it's an old copy of a title, and they've had a title loan on this thing for like 2 years that's past due or something. So now you can't even go register the car, right? Or it had two owners and you didn't look at it carefully enough, only one signed, because the other one, it's like an estranged couple that have split,
right? Oh yeah.
And you go to the
DMV. In my language now, DMV titling part.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then you go try to register this car and you can't, and you can't get it and now you can't resell it, right? So it's a big problem, and maybe you didn't even get a bill of sale, so it's even harder to get like a bonded title, right? All of these kinds of things. Dealerships have a lot of capabilities, that help alleviate these concerns. They're plugged into DMVs, as you know, right? They can pull registration data in certain scenarios as allowed by law. And KeySavvy is also a licensed dealership, but and so that's just on the fraud side, right, of things. The inconvenience is a totally separate problem in private party that's really interesting. For example, if you find a car and you want to buy it, it's by a private seller, but they have a loan. They don't have a title in most states. Maybe in some states, they do actually have the title, but it lists a lien. So they can't transfer it, right, with the lien still on there. But for the sake of simplicity, let's say they don't have the title. So now, how do you do that, right? Do you pay your seller and say, please, like, cross your fingers and say, I would really appreciate it if you paid off your loan,
Right?
with this money that is now yours, right? And then you have to wait several weeks before the lien holder releases that title, and they get, but it doesn't go to you as the buyer, it goes to the seller. So now, once again, you're meeting your seller again and hoping that they give you the title. And I've actually done transactions like that way back in the day before I knew, anything about what was going on. I sold a car, I had a loan on it. And I didn't even know that the buyer couldn't register it. I was just like, yeah, I don't know, I guess, like, take this bill of sale down there. And he calls me and he's like, hey, they won't let, and he didn't know either, right? He's like, hey, they won't let me register the car without the title. I go, really? That's so weird. Well, I guess you'll just have to wait. And he's like, well, I can't drive it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess not.
It's funny. It's like, that is a big portion of it for private party, because even my dad bought my sister's car off of her, right? Because she got a new one and her old one's paid off. And so, he comes to me like with all these questions, like, what do I do? How do I register? What's going on? This, that. And it's like, yeah, most, we're in this weird little automotive bubble, right? Especially when it comes to titles and stuff like that. But majority of people don't. It's like the unknown. And so when it's unknown, it's scary to them on, am I doing it the right way? Am I going to get pulled over? Can I drive it right now? Can I not? What's happening? So,
yep. And they want somebody to call that's knowledgeable. And sometimes KeySavvy is that person that they can call. But of course, we try to automate as much as possible too, and make it easy for people. But yeah, it's a big unknown, and the paperwork is confusing. And it gets really complicated, when there's a loan involved, or it's out of state. Just the complexity increases even more, and people get uncomfortable and need a service, right, to make it easy. And that's our mission.
Gotcha. So I can see the trust factor, but then the flip side of that is probably, I'm assuming, a challenge that KeySavvy has is, how do you go and establish the trust with the public, right? As a trusted brand, like what's all involved with that? Because that's got to be, to solve the trust problem, you have to be trustworthy. So
yeah,
how's that?
I guess I'll let you know in a few years when we've achieved
right. Yeah. Google status.
Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, entering a market as a new player, as a new service, right, where we don't have 1,000 reviews on Google, it is really tough when the biggest problem is trust. And we get that a lot. I often, we often get calls where people have exactly that question. They don't trust their seller, and they're like, oh, well, wait a minute, I also don't trust you. And it's almost an awkward moment on the phone. Sometimes I've done some of these calls, early on, and it's really funny. So we kind of leaned into it. We built a trust specific page, and it's right there on our header on the site. And, my picture is on there. My co-founder's picture is on there. We show people how to look up our dealer license in Minnesota. We give them steps to look it up. We're we got that Better Business Bureau accreditation, which I don't want to.
Right.
As you know,
that post.
Yeah. Every once in a while I go on a rant.
But also one thing that I think you guys are doing really well is I've seen a couple of your blog posts and just educational pieces. So just from to solve for that unknown, you guys are putting content out there that people can go to and get questions answered. And I think that's really helpful, because if people can rely on your website to educate, they're more likely to trust using the platform. So
yeah,
I think that's been
content is really important. And we don't produce content just to try to rank for keywords. We really try to produce content. We don't publish anything unless we can look at it and say, this is the best version of this content that's on the internet. And sometimes, we have like a how to sell with loan blog article, for example, and it's got a little tool and you can pick answers to some questions, and it'll recommend a way, to get your deal, your transaction done. And it doesn't always recommend KeySavvy. If you pick that, selling fast is the most important thing, we tell you, you might just trade into a dealership.
Right.
If that's truly what's most important, like this is probably you might not want to go down this journey of selling private party, and I think like stuff like that goes a long way with consumers. They see that and they're like, oh, maybe this is not like some of these other companies that are, you can tell nowadays, content it's there to serve the search engine and not the consumer. And I don't think that that's a sustainable strategy. So we don't do that.
Cool. Yeah. I think people can see through that stuff now. I had a question written down. Where is it? Oh, so you're a technical founder. So you're an actual engineer. That's been, seems like looking at stalking your LinkedIn profile that you spent a lot of time as an engineer. So how do you think that helps you as a technical co-founder or founder? And then does it hurt you, or what's that relationship like? Is your co-founder, is he on like more of the business side, or what? Because you seem to have both, like the technical skills, but also kind of business savvy skills. So I'm just curious to know, like, how does that help or hurt you with your background?
Yeah, I mean, I like to think that it just helps me, I guess. I do love the engineering side, and I think that I'll always be involved there. But I kind of get my hands in everything, right? I'm doing business development. I do a lot of marketing as well. I used to lead the marketing team at Tread. And I've built a lot of our early marketing at KeySavvy as well, but I've also written a lot of code at KeySavvy. I was a manager at Amazon before I started KeySavvy, and although writing code was not part of my job description whatsoever, I still wrote a lot of code there too, because it's fun and I like to contribute that way. I see a problem, and if I think I can solve it without wasting a bunch of time. Now, that being said, like the team and the company, that stuff comes first. I like doing that because I like to write code and I like to build things. But I always, I have my priorities straight, I think. So team, cool. people problems do, overrule, and eventually I kind of get out of that builder mode, or sometimes for months, you just got to get out of the builder mode and do something else. But I like to just I like to try to contribute in as many different ways as I can, so how it helps me hire, I would say, is the biggest thing. Because I can talk to technical people and like see if they're full of shit, or can I on this? Do you edit the swearing out, or
no? I heavily encourage it.
Oh, good. Actually, good. Good. I'll really let loose then. I think it helps hire a ton. When you've walked the walk a little bit, like a marketer, a digital marketer or something like that. I talk to marketing agencies sometimes that will want to like sell us services and things, and
gotcha.
You can see through. So like it's funny how the script on their end changes when they realize that you actually know how to implement a lot of the things that they're talking about. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you can sniff them out real quick. So, you brought up a interesting point because with the company that we're building right now, it's our engineering team is awesome, and I don't have an engineering background, so I just rely on them telling me that I just believe everything they say. I can't tell the difference, but
Yeah.
but what is obvious is having the people skills, especially with your employees,
Yeah.
is like the most important thing to getting, to moving fast, because you can have the technical side down, but unless there's that kind of communication and people management, it's like that's what slows you down and starts bottlenecking things when you're not all in sync and
Oh yeah.
managing that the right way.
100%, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody is blocked and they can't reach out, they hesitate to reach out, and or they don't fully understand, what you're building and why, or the requirements behind it, and they just go down a path that's wrong for a week.
Yeah.
You never get that week back, and when you're young and you're trying to move fast, you're a young company and you're trying to move fast, that can be pretty brutal. Yeah, and it's tough to solve that. It's really also like the hiring process, it's not easy, right? It's not easy to hire people and kind of figure that stuff out in interviews, I think. So there's always some risk. There's always some risk there in bringing somebody new onto the team.
My soapbox is, it has been on LinkedIn, is the importance of verifying, vehicle data, titling data, registration data, verifying that upfront in an efficient way so that it doesn't snowball into big titling issues later, like you talked about, right? Like, oh, there's a co-buyer that we didn't know that needs to sign this. Now we got to go back, and it's an ex-husband or ex-wife or something like that, or it has a lien on it. We didn't know the title that we had was not the latest one. The latest one was with the title loan that he just took out a couple days before, whatever. So, so when it comes to verifying that type of information, how is KeySavvy doing that? How are you ensuring that, and how do your users get that confirmation or that security level, knowing, okay, I can trust this data. Let's move forward.
Yeah, it's a number of different things that we do. I mean, number one, if they say that they have their title, we require a picture of the front and back of the title, and we are able to see it. And then you can we'll look at the issue date on the title and match it with NMVitas data. So we'll pull an NMVitas report and do that. So that's how you kind of verify that it's the most recent version. So that's pretty good. If there's a loan, we reach out to the lender, and they always will require the VIN and confirming the registered owner, or at least the account holder's name. And so that's another piece, right? Just another data point that plugs in there. And then finally, DMV registration data. Once we and we typically will get written consent from the seller to pull that, just to cover all of our bases on the DBA. But that's sort of that final piece. And then we'll receive the physical title in a lot of cases as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can put the hands on it and actually
Oh yeah.
touch it and
You
feel
know,
it.
luckily we all have paper titles still, so I can really like touch and feel the title. I can't wait until that's not a thing anymore.
Yeah, I know. It feels like, yeah, like it feels like things are moving in the right direction and moving, uh,
Yeah. I think
fairly quick, but at the same time, you'll blink and 10 years have gone by and you're like, okay, we thought this would be 2 years. Now,
oh yeah.
but
It's so funny. I mean, you can't think of a dumber way to implement a system like this than the current system, right? I mean, when we buy a car in California that has a loan, it's usually the lender has an electronic, it's an electronic title, right?
yeah,
And so what they do is the lender will release the lien. They notify California to send the title to us. California prints a paper title. They send it to us via mail, so we get it most of the time. And then, so there's already a ton of room for error in this process, right? We get this paper title, we sign it, we reassign it to our buyer. We mail it again to the buyer, which is often right back to California. The buyer takes it back to the DMV again. So now the title's made a full circle trip from, our dealership, California, to our dealership back to California. And then California gets the title that's signed. They throw it in the trash.
right.
Right? They print another one and hand it
Yeah,
to the buyer. And it's like, what value are we adding here for consumers? It's completely insane.
yeah,
So,
totally. And that, the good news is, I think more states are understanding that. More states are looking to embrace new technology. Like my home state of California, they're starting to make some moves to help digitize that process more and more. But ultimately, until a good amount of states are kind of connected in that way, the interstate transfers are they're going to continue to be brutal on many levels.
do you know much about the West Virginia clearinghouse stuff and how that might work with an interstate? Because I don't completely, I'm excited about that, but
Yeah.
I admit I don't completely understand how, if we buy a car in California, can I title that digitally somehow in West Virginia? But I would imagine I would have to have California connected to West Virginia somehow. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
So I think the best way I heard it explained is West Virginia to titles is like how Delaware is to corporations,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Where they just make it easy to, right? Yeah, I think you've heard that. So, so with that being said, I think everybody's still trying to know specifically how this is all going to go down in West Virginia, but from what I can gather from what's out there is it will impact more of fleet or auction company, people that go and acquire large amounts of vehicles from all across the country. So instead of working with each state to title it in their name, they're able to title all those vehicles, in West Virginia in their name.
Yeah, without having a West Virginia dealer license too, I think.
Correct. Yeah. I think that's right. I don't know.
I think that's right. Yeah.
But
let's just assume
if that's the case, that's already a huge leap. If you're a national company, like KeySavvy, you guys are across. You can operate in every state, right?
Yeah, all 50 states. Yeah, I think we've done transactions in 35 states so far.
Okay. Yeah, so I get if you need to title all those in your name and your dealer name first, I'm assuming you could utilize it. I don't know. We'll have to see how that, works out.
That's it would be interesting. I mean, we don't typically retitle vehicles today, but if we could, we would if it would be worth it.
Right.
We could speed things up significantly.
Yeah, I think that's the other main benefit, right? Is one, not having to go through several jurisdictions to title it in your name, but two, based on, Champ Title's blockchain and digital title program, they're able to turn these things around in a day or something rather than 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. So that's
that would be nice.
That would be nice. So with one thing that I know you and I talked about before we started recording, but if you can touch on it, you mentioned the EV tax credit. I don't know what that is. I mean, I know what it is, but I don't understand.
What's an EV?
Yeah, right. So, but how are you guys utilizing that, or what's the benefit to the users?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So, there's this new used EV tax credit that just came into effect this year. And if you look at the IRS website and the rules around it, you'll see that you only qualify if you purchase from a dealership. And there's a number of other eligibility factors to consider and stuff, but that's one of them. And the primary reason for that is because dealers report the sale to the IRS. And that's one of the ways that the IRS gets this information and is able to confirm the sale, so that you get your credit when you file your return. So, if you find a used Nissan Leaf on Craigslist, and maybe at all the dealers they're going for $28,000, which wouldn't qualify, but you find one on Craigslist for $25,000, but it's a private seller, normally you still wouldn't qualify, even though it's cheap enough to qualify. You're not buying from a dealer, right? However, if you pay that seller with KeySavvy, we could process that transaction like a dealership, and we report sales of EVs just like any other dealer. And so now you not only get a better price because you're buying at private party value instead of dealer retail, but you also now qualify for the up to $4,000 tax credit for the purchase of the EV too.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Because you're a dealer.
Yeah, because we're a dealer.
We're facilitating that. Okay, that's pretty neat. And then I know I said I didn't want to make this a KeySavvy commercial, but it just interests me. So
it's how are they irresistible, isn't it?
Yeah, right. How are the consumers? Is it it's an app, or is it through the website, or both? Or
it's just a website. Yeah. Okay. There are some reasons why we're not going to build them. We may never build a mobile app. Maybe someday. I don't know, but probably not for a while.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. So they can just go on the website and.
Yep. Yeah, it's all on the website. It's very mobile friendly. Most people are on their phone using the website, but we don't force you to, download an app. It's too much friction.
Totally. Yeah. And for potentially a one-time thing every couple of years or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. I was going back to the trust thing and the getting ripped off by bad actors, this morning when I was dropping my son off at school, I was listening to the radio, and it's like, yeah, of course there's going to be people scamming you out of like these car sales, these private party kind of shady Craigslist thing, because on the way to school, the radio was talking about how egg prices, the whole thing, egg prices are through the roof. Well, it seems more and more people are looking to buy chickens to supply their own eggs, right?
Cool. Okay.
And so that seemed to be like this growing trend of people buying chickens so they can have their own eggs. And with that, inevitably came chicken scammers. So these were people on Facebook Marketplace or whatever that say they own these chicken coops or whatever, and people are signing up, paying them $140, $150 for a couple chickens, and then it was all made up. And so I'm like, if people are going to that length to rip off $140 for some chickens, then you best believe they're going to be doing it for a $20,000 vehicle.
Oh yeah, there's some pros out there. Chickens, you know what we need? We need paper titles for chickens. I think
yes,
that's the solution. That's the solution to that problem.
Yeah, that's true. Just some stamp some VINs on them.
Chickens are cheap. I think you can get a chicken for like, I heard they were like $5 for a chicken.
Yeah. The
I think
problem
that
is
costs
coyotes
yeah.
and other animals really love them.
I mean, they're delicious.
Cool. So what has been, I got a couple more questions for you.
All right.
What has been the most, because whenever you're building out a new product that's a new category, because I don't know how many companies are doing this. You're the one that stands out the most to me, mainly because we've known each other for a little bit. But what has been kind of an unexpected hurdle, or what has been the big thing that you've had to get around that you didn't know was going to be there when you started the company?
Yeah, good question. I would say, I think that the trust barrier was larger than we initially anticipated. I think that is a big one. We knew it would be there because it's a lot of money. You can't. It's hard to get somebody to wire you, $60K for a car, right? Like you
Right.
have some level of trust there, of course. So we knew that was going to be a thing, but it was definitely harder to overcome than we anticipated, and I think that did slow us down. So that was probably like the most surprising thing. And then the other thing is how bad lenders are at releasing liens. It's mind-blowing sometimes how awful they can be and how unaccountable they are at the same time. Because we've had people, and this I would say, even more so than the trust thing, like we anticipated a little bit. It was just harder than we thought. But the lender thing, you'd think a large financial institution that does many car loans, there's very well-known names, would be able to, for example, the right address to mail a payoff check to. But however, as we discovered, they are not capable of that at all times. Or releasing, like not sending the title to the seller and instead sending the title to like the dealer that paid or we had one that took, I think, over 45 days to release a lien.
Wow.
Which is against the law,
Right.
for one. They literally didn't cash the check for over 40 days. I think it was like over 45 days. So what do you do?
Yeah.
Right? It's so interesting.
Yeah. On the dealer side too, it's like, just in my experience, like there's also this kind of relationship that you have to have with these lenders because they can help you.
Yeah.
And you can call on them when you need them. And there's, there's all this stuff going on there, but then there's sometimes where you got to be like, hey, according to the law right here, we can charge you if I don't get this, this lien released.
Yeah. We had a lender to claim that they didn't identify as a lender, and so they do things differently. And I don't think that's a thing.
Yeah, doesn't sound like it is.
You can't just decide that you're some other form of business. When you're giving out car loans, you can't just claim that you're not a lender.
So do you have I mean, is there anything out there where you have visibility into what's going on with these lien releases? Is there anything that you do, or is it just internal tracking of when you sent it and when to check back in, this and that?
Yeah, it's primarily internal tracking. I mean, it's interesting to think about. I think that I know this is a problem for a lot of people. I mean, Carvana, of course, has had very public problems with title chasing, and I totally get it. Right, I can absolutely see how that became such a big issue for Carvana because we feel it too. But it would be fantastic to have some sort of title tracking mechanism that worked in all 50 states that would let you know. But I don't know of anything like that. We some states have something, but it's not national. It would be amazing if we just had national titles, right, instead of state
Yeah.
by state. That'd be so cool. Wouldn't that be
That
cheaper?
would, yeah, right. It would.
Right? For
So
everybody?
what that kind of leads me to one of my last questions is, from a private party standpoint, what is kind of the ultimate experience for the customer?
Mhm.
Like, or is there like some future technology that you're like, oh, if this existed, it would make it, make KeySavvy even more efficient, or make the user experience, way even better? Like, is there something that's out there, like a North Star, that would be your perfect scenario? Or like, is there anything you're excited about? What do you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely excited about the West Virginia stuff. If we're able to leverage it, and
Yeah.
anything where, if we're able to truly transfer ownership digitally without all of these delays, it doesn't solve like the lender problem that I was talking about, but that would be okay on its own. But then when you add in like the mailing of a paper title and stuff, it kind of blows into a bigger problem. But electronic transfer of ownership, I think, would be just such a game changer. And also on the payment side, there are some changes coming. FedNow, a new real-time payment. There's also real-time payments, but there's some limitations there. But being able to effectively, imagine if you could send money with Zelle, but you could send 100K or 150K with Zelle, right? You can't do that today.
Gotcha.
And it's not supported by every bank and so on. So I think there's some major innovations in payments as well. So like those two things will create an amazing experience for private party transactions. And we're definitely trying to stay on top of all of that stuff so that as soon as we can leverage it to improve our customers' experience, you better,
Right.
we're going to be doing it. So that's the kind of stuff that needs to happen.
Totally. Yeah. And I think a common theme with a lot of companies that I talk to or interact with or work with is they're not in the business of like title and registration. Like that's not their thing. It's a necessary evil
Right.
for them to provide the service that they're building, or that they're in the business of providing. And so it's always like the title and registration portion of it, or the titling portion of it, is always like this necessary evil that is a friction point that almost hurts or can hurt your end customer experience and your reviews and all that stuff. And
big time. Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, unless you're staying on top of what's new, what's coming out, that can make it easier. There's still a lot of companies that are stuck in, the old days of title and reg work. And it's like, I don't know, there's new ways of doing this. There's new ways of getting the data. There's new ways of transferring the data. Like you said, this West Virginia thing is exciting. So yeah, I'm with that, man. I think over the next couple of years, maybe not 2 years, but maybe 10 years, as more states, there's more interstate, reciprocity, when it comes to transfers, it's going to make it a lot easier for all these companies. So
that'd be amazing. And you're exactly right. I mean, if you're a company that if your customers rely on you perfecting titles or getting titles to them in a timely manner, and you're not on top of that, you're going to get burned big time. Because imagine somebody's waiting 90 days for their title. So they don't like have that form, that proof of ownership yet. They don't have a way to sell the vehicle.
Right.
So what if they fall on hard financial times or something? If something happens with their house, they need to get a new roof. It's like leaking in their kid's room, right? And they got to sell this car. They don't have a title because you haven't mailed it to them yet, because your back office management sucks.
You're right.
That's a bad review is going to be the least of your problems in a scenario like that. So it's really important to finish the deal.
Yeah, no, I appreciate companies that, selfishly, because I'm in this DMV world, but I appreciate companies that look at the titling aspect of it as equally as important, because there's still a lot of companies that still think, oh, that's just back office admin, whatever. We got the sale, we sold the vehicle,
right? The money transfer's done.
We got the loan, we did this. That's all just an afterthought when there's a lot of that thinking. So I like working with companies that are like, no, we want to make sure that this goes smooth. So what tools do we need to put in place? What processes? Obviously it makes it hard because it's so DMV, so, fractal. It's all
we're at the mercy.
Siloed.
It is. It is a little bit out of our control sometimes, and that's the part that's unfortunate. And I think that's where, as states build these new tools and these new capabilities, what's really happening is it's transferring the control to the businesses that want to leverage that stuff. Because now, if we're able to title a vehicle in minutes, now we control more of the process, right? Versus calling a lender, like mailing a check to a lender and hoping,
it gets there. Or gets back.
Right? I just look at our dashboard and pray every night to each lender, please release the lien on this 2018 Audi Q5.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Andrew, I appreciate it. Appreciate the talk. And so the website just keysavvy.com. If you can spell that out, that'd be awesome.
KeySavvy, keysavvy.com.
Cool. By the way, the website looks awesome.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, it's really good.
I built most of it.
Did you?
I did the Photoshop on that picture.
Oh, nice. See, once again, the engineering and computer background.
I can't help it. It's just it's fun.
Awesome, dude. Well, it was good talking, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Awesome. Yeah, see ya.
See ya.